part of the project was to develop a mapping and reporting tool, and that is now done and has been launched, and that's really the purpose here today, and we'll jump into that pretty quick and show you the tool, which I think the project team has called it the capstone deliverable for the project. I've called it the crown jewel. I mean, I think you'll like it. It's pretty neat. As we go into this, I want to extend some special thanks to the military for providing the funding for the project. And we have Kim Peacher on the line, and I think we can actually see her too. So I'd like to give her a chance to introduce herself and say a few words.
Thank you, Wally. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Good morning, Chair Grail, Vice Chair Howe, members of the council. My name is Kim Peacher. I am the Northwest Training Range Complex Community Planning and Liaison Officer. I am a civilian. I've been doing this about 11 years. And the other hat I wear is the civilian lead for the Northwest Department of Defense Regional Coordination Team, which brings together all of the military services in the entire Northwest, which includes Oregon and Washington. First and foremost, I want to thank you for the opportunity to present here today. We have really been working on this grant for several years. It's a significant step towards early notification and coordination with the military, including the Department of Defense, and really supports with providing transparency about where we're operate, and I think really opens the door to opportunities for future coordination and viability of our training as we all try to kind of coexist in this environment where populations are increasing and renewable energy is growing with that. And with our critical assets, both air, land, and sea space in Oregon, this has really been a great opportunity in working with the staff to move strides in regards to coordination and foster compatible land, air, and sea use. So again, thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Kim. I appreciate that. Appreciate the funding that DoD provided for the project. So I wanted to mention too, core member of the team is the Oregon State Institute for Natural Resources, or INR for short. They led the mapping tool development, did a fantastic job on it, I think, as you'll see. This slide just covers the goals for the ERESA project overall. Of course, Kim talked a little bit about DoD goals. Project goals included creating relevant educational tools for stakeholders. And we're going to see, of course, the big one, the mapping tool, here in a minute. This shows you the major parts of the project. And again, I don't want to spend a lot of time going over these individually, but there was a renewable energy market and industry assessment that was done very early on, military needs and interest assessment. We looked at opportunities and constraints, and those first three were led by three different consulting firms that worked on the project. The fourth one, the siting procedures review, was something actually I led and put together for the team. And now we're into these very final phases, the outreach, and of course, the launch of this mapping and reporting tool that we'll see today. And the project is basically wrapping up at the end of this month. One other thing I wanted to mention, there is an ERESA report that has been issued, and you can find a draft of it on ODO's website. And I'll show you the website in a minute. That's kind of a hub for the project and a good place to look if you're trying to find other information on the ERESA project. The draft of this report is out there on the website. So again, the mapping and reporting tool was developed by OSU INR. It is housed on the Oregon Explorer, which is for people in the planning and development business, is, I think, pretty well known in Oregon as a place to go. It's a good repository for data and data layers associated with planning. The ERESA team, reviewed more than 600 data sets as part of the development of this tool. And then I&R conducted some significant user testing with more than 100 participants. It was their largest ever engagement to test this before it was launched. So the tool itself has three main pillars or parts. There's an explore data function, which is where we'll go in a little bit. There's also a reporting function, which is aimed more at if you're a renewable energy developer and you're looking for a site that you can use in order to do that, and then get a report on the characteristics of the site that you've mapped out. And by the way, when you do that, that information is only available to you as the user. It's not stored anywhere. So, and that, of course, is a big concern for developers. They want to keep their information confidential for very understandable reasons until they're ready to release it. But there's no risk of that happening through the use of the tool. And then finally, there's a learn section as well, where you can find information on citing procedures, for example, and other things that would be relevant to the citing process. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and switch applications here so that we can do the demo. Okay, so what I'm bringing up first is just the ODA website, and I wanted to point out that if you scroll down a little bit over here on the right, you can see there's a link for the ERESA project, and a lot of information here on the project. But then if we scroll down a little bit, under key deliverables, you see ERESA mapping and reporting tool.
I have a quick question or really clarification.
Sure.
To make sure everybody's listening, you don't need any special software for this. You know, I mean, it's just an online mapping tool, so you don't need GIS software or anything. You can access this just with a computer and access to the internet.
That is correct, and I think the only advice that they give is to use a modern browser. So, you know, Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Firefox are the three that the I&R people have tested and know work with this. If you use something else, you may run into an issue. So, thank you for pointing that out, Todd. I appreciate it. Okay, so this is the screen we saw earlier. I'm going to pick a different window here because I've got some things queued up that we will need for the demo. So if you go into the Explore section, you will see something like this. I'll zoom out a little because you're just starting out. In here, you're going to see the map of Oregon. What you're seeing there right now, those lines, so there are, of course, different map layers that you can turn on and off in here, and the one that we have turned on at the moment are transmission lines. So you can immediately see that. Zoom back in a little bit. The first thing I want to do, and there are different ways to approach this because different people can use this tool for different purposes. Like I say, a developer might be, you know, prospecting for a site. I'm approaching it from the standpoint, how would somebody within our siting group use it? How would they use it maybe if they were supporting FSEC? And of course, it would be looking at one of the projects that comes to us. So I have uploaded the site boundary for a new project that's in here. And I can click that data layer on now. And I just need to zoom in a little so that we can see it. And this is the Echo solar project. And we can make this look darker, or we can, change the transparency so that you can see the layers underneath. So you might wonder, well, how can you do that? How difficult is that to do that? So I'm going to upload a second project here just to show you that it's pretty simple. So there's an upload feature I just clicked on, and then it says choose files. Now these do have to be in a particular format. People who are familiar with GIS typically will know how to do this. And I'm picking another project that has not officially come to council yet, but maybe in the near future. And this is the Wagon Trail project. And I'm going to say upload. And then it just asks me what I want to name that. I think that name is fine. And I say proceed. It asks me if I want to customize anything. And there it is. So you can see this one fits really kind of like a jigsaw puzzle together with the Echo project. It's directly adjacent to it. So now that we've done that, let's take a look at some things related to this. And the first place I'm going to go is with the military layers, since the military funded this, and we've talked about or we should talk about the potential for conflicts with military uses. I want to click on some of those layers. So as I do that, bear with me just a second, because one of the things that I know is nearby is the Boardman geographic area of concern. So you can see up here at the top that we get some overlap here with one of these layers I just clicked on. So if you're using this, you might want to know, well, what is that exactly? And hopefully you can read that, and maybe I need to make that a little bigger. And sorry, off the one I wanted. There we go. So up here, when I click on that, you can see it highlights that layer and it tells you that's the Boardman geographic area of concern. So, if we're looking at a project like this, that's immediately going to tell us, the military needs to be contacted and aware that there's a project that is overlapping with one of their areas. Okay. So moving on from there, and, there are a lot of layers in here. We could end up doing this all day. I promise you we won't. There are a couple of things, though, that I want to point out. So one of them is under the energy infrastructure, you can see there's a layer in here for the Oregon Energy Facility Siting Council facilities. So if we click on that, lo and behold, all of our FSEC facilities come up. And as was the case before, we can make those a little darker or a little lighter. Another thing that may be of interest here, wind turbines. So if you were interested in seeing, for example, exactly where wind turbines are located, this layer has all of them. I'm going to decrease the darkness a little on the FSEC facilities. Obviously, it's going to overlap with a lot of that. But as we zoom in, you can actually see those individual points in here. Okay.
Well, did that also show those on the Washington side, wind turbines? Kind of looked like I saw something on the Washington side.
It probably does, yeah. And, depending on where the data is coming from will, determine, the range of the data that we have. And of course, some of it's going to be outside of the Oregon borders. Okay, so again, I'm going to kind of put my siting analyst hat on and say, okay, we have this new project. What other things might we want to look at? I'm going to get back here to where we have our two projects showing. So how about wetlands? That's one. And there are different wetland layers that are in here. I have a few of them clicked on. And when I click on wetlands overall, you'll see things start popping up here. It's a transmission line. Let's see here. There we go. So now that we're zoomed in a little bit, and it's had a chance to load this layer, you can see, where it's showing any wetlands, and if we want to know, well, what are those? These are smaller sources. They're part of the streams and rivers layer that I'm clicking on and off. But it would be something that the analyst would want to make sure was being considered as we were looking at the effects of the project. And you can click on these data layers to get more information if you're curious about, well, what is that layer really? It gives you a good description of what's behind that. So the last one that I wanted to show you here is farmland, since that always comes up, farmland and soil classifications. So if I click on farmland soil class, you can see this thing really lights up. And let's go out just a little bit. And you can see these are color coded. So this bright green says all areas are prime farmland. Got not prime farmland if drained, and so forth. So let's say, well, I'd like to know a little bit more about this bright green area. So if I click on this, I think I'm going to have to reduce my zoom a little, and we can zoom back in again if we need to. So I clicked on a point and then right click, and it comes up with this find data on the map. And when I do that, you can see I get this pop-up over here with farmland soil class, and it says farmland of statewide importance, and it highlights this area that's marked like that. If I want to know a little bit more about it, and I click on that arrow for more information, now I could actually see what that soil type is. I'll show you one more before we wrap this up. So that was farmland soil class. Let's look at irrigated soil class. And again, we get, a pretty colorful view here. But let's click on one of these. That looks like it's overlapping with the project boundary, and do the same thing. And here it says irrigated soil capability class 3. So that's, and then it gives you a description of what falls under that. And again, we've got the details on that particular area. So you get the idea. I mean, it's a technical tool, but it has tons of information in it. And, you know, as we talk to people, so these data layers that are in here, pretty much they're publicly available layers. And, you know, again, if you're in this business, you probably know where to look for these things and where to find them. But the thing that to me is really unique about this Aresa tool, it pulls them all together into one place. It's one-stop shopping. This tool is going to be maintained by INR. So Odo has basically signed up for a maintenance contract with INR to maintain this tool and make sure that the layers are kept up to date. You know, for example, as FSEC facilities are added, those will be added. As new layers maybe become available that would be relevant, those can be added, and the ones that are in there will be updated. So a pretty powerful tool. Yeah, and I think that's about it. Again, I want to express our thanks to DoD for their funding and for the, more than the funding, the participation in the project. So Kim was great to work with on this project, as was Todd Farmer, who's her colleague, and he wasn't available to join us today, but both of them have been a huge help and have been big participants in this project and making it successful. We'll stop there and see if you have any questions.
Wally, Todd?
Yeah, just a couple of things to add. So, you know, I'd asked the question before just to make sure that everybody knew that you don't need, you know, any specific software other than, you know, an up-to-date web browser, as Wally talked about. So if you're your average person, they can access this information. But also, if you have GIS, you know, Wally showed that you can upload shape files into the system. You can also download them from the system as well. So, I mean, so if somebody, whether it's county or, you know, some other organization that actually has GIS, it can be very, very useful bringing, you know, again, uploading layers or downloading layers as well. So, you know, it's really available for your average person, but also I would say the more sort of sophisticated GIS users. The other thing that Wally and I actually just talked about is, you know, things can be overwhelming for people who don't have much background, and there's a lot of layers, there's a lot of detail. So I think, are going to have some discussions about, you know, whether it's like a video recording on how your average person can access and kind of march through this, or handouts. So I think as we move forward, because obviously we want to make our process as transparent as possible, and this is such a great equalizer of information. We want to make sure your average person can access and utilize this data readily. So we'll be working on those also tools to make it more accessible for people as well.
Quick question, maybe a stupid one. So protected areas that we saw, do those correlate at all with, for instance, our protected, or what we would consider as protected areas? So as you analyze, is it all there?
Thank you, Councilmember Condon. I don't know if there's a layer specifically for FSEC protected areas. I'd have to look at that again, but I'm sure that the layers that are in there for protected areas do encompass the ones that are in the council's standards at a minimum, and many more. And, you know, again, we could spend hours literally just going through all the layers that are in there. I mean, it's fascinating. You know, you find yourself going down rabbit holes when you go in here for that reason. But it's quite comprehensive. I will say that.
Ann Byer, just thank you again to the Department of Defense and Kim for her work shepherding this through. I was one of the original guinea pigs for local governments on this tool, and it's so exciting to see this come to fruition. I think some guidance for local governments and local GIS staff. I don't know that they know that there's such a powerful tool out here. So very excited to see this, and just to remind the public that play with this, you cannot break it. They have designed it so you can't break it. So kudos to the team for bringing this to fruition. Thank you.